The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched far into the darkness above. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats. The air hummed with the sound of many different languages being translated by machines. At the center of it all stood Elder Vorthak, his ancient body supported by a floating chair that glowed with soft blue light. Vorthak had lived for 800 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species grow from using simple tools to traveling between stars. But today something made him feel afraid. The humans were coming. Ambassador Taman walked into the hall with steady steps. Behind him came Admiral Sujin, her uniform clean and sharp. Counselor Baekhyun followed them, his young face showing no fear. The three humans looked so small compared to the other beings in the hall. The Selenians were tall and thin like trees. The Zephyrians had wings that sparkled like metal. The Korvaxians stood like mountains of muscle and bone. But Vorthak remembered the old stories his teachers had told him long ago. Stories about a species that would come from a small blue world. Stories that most people now thought were just tales for children. "Welcome, beings of Earth," Vorthak said, his voice carrying across the hall. "You have traveled far to stand before us today." Taman bowed his head in respect. "Thank you, Elder Vorthak. We come here hoping to join the great family of worlds that you lead." A low rumble came from the Korvaxian section. General Krek stood up, his massive form casting a shadow. "These humans have barely learned to leave their own star system. What can they offer us?" Admiral Sujin spoke before Taman could answer. "We offer ourselves, our ideas, our way of looking at problems." "Problems?" The Zephyrian leader, Skyweaver Zilthan, laughed with a sound like wind through metal. "Child species always think they can solve what we cannot." Vorthak raised his hand for silence. The hall became quiet. "There is something I must tell you all. Something from our oldest records." He touched a control and words appeared in the air above them. The letters were old and strange, but the translation machines made them clear to everyone. "Beware the young species that conquers not through strength alone, but through adaptation, unity, and refusal to yield. They will reshape the very fabric of existence." The hall erupted in noise. Some beings laughed. Others looked confused. A few seemed angry. "Ancient superstition," General Krex declared. "Fairy tales from before we understood science." "My people have kept these words for 20,000 years, Vorthak said firmly. "They were written by the first ones who came before any of us." Counselor Baekhyun stepped forward. "Elder Vorthak, we don't claim to be special. We just want to learn from you and maybe share what we know too." Vorthak studied the young human. There was something in his eyes that reminded the old Selenian of the ancient words. Not arrogance, but a quiet confidence. Not aggression, but determination. "The motion before us is simple," announced Skyweaver Zilthan. "Do we accept these humans as members of our council?" The vote was quick. Most species voted yes, but only because they thought humans would be harmless. They were curious about these newcomers, the way someone might be curious about a new pet. "You are granted membership," Vorthak announced. "You will be given the Outer Rim territories to govern. These are worlds that other species have found too difficult or too poor to bother with." Taman's face didn't change. "We accept with gratitude. Don't you want to argue for better worlds?" asked Counselor next of the hegemony. "Most new species demand the best planets. We'll make the best of what we're given," Admiral Sujin replied simply. After the formal ceremony ended, Vorthak found himself alone with the three humans in a smaller meeting room. The walls were covered with star maps showing the territories each species controlled. The human section looked tiny compared to the others. "You know something the others don't," Vorthak said. It wasn't a question. Taman sat down across from the ancient being. "We know that good things take time to build. We know that respect must be earned. And we know that the best opportunities often come disguised as problems. The Outer Rim worlds have many challenges," Vorthak warned. "Harsh climates, strange diseases, dangerous wildlife. Most species avoid them for good reasons." Counselor Baekhyun smiled. "On Earth we have a saying, 'The bamboo that bends in the storm survives while the mighty oak falls.' Adaptation over strength," Admiral Sujin added. "It served us well so far." Vorthak felt a chill run through his ancient bones. These humans spoke like the prophecy made real. But surely it was just coincidence. Surely three young beings from a backward world couldn't be the ones the first ones had warned about. "There's something else," he said slowly. "The prophecy I read today was not complete. There are more words, but they have been lost for centuries." "What do you remember?" Taman asked. "Only fragments. Something about choice. About the galaxy having to choose between old ways and new. About transformation that would touch every world. Vorthak paused. And something about those who would not believe until it was too late to stop what was coming. The three humans exchanged glances. Not worried glances, but the kind of look that people share when they understand something others don't. Elder Vorthak, Taman said gently. We didn't come here to conquer anyone. We came to learn and to help where we can. But change is coming, Admiral Sujin added. Change always comes whether people want it or not. The only choice is whether to fight it or guide it. After the humans left, Vorthak sat alone in the dark room, staring at the star maps. The human territory looked so small, but something about it bothered him. Maybe it was the way Taman had spoken, or the calm confidence in Admiral Sujin's voice, or the knowing smile on young Baekhyun's face, or maybe it was the way they had accepted the worst territories without complaint, as if they saw opportunities where everyone else saw only problems. The ancient Selenian touched the old prophecy controls again, bringing up words that had been written before his species had even learned to fly, words that spoke of beings who would reshape existence itself. They were warned, he whispered to the empty room. But no one believed. Outside in the great shipyards of Nexus Prime, the human vessels prepared to depart for their new homes in the Outer Rim. They were small ships compared to the massive dreadnoughts of the established powers. But they carried something that the others had forgotten about long ago. They carried hope. 6 months had passed since humans settled in the Outer Rim. The galaxy had almost forgotten about them. Then the emergency signal started coming from Korvaxian space. Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of his ship, the Harmony, reading the desperate message that had just arrived. Admiral Sujin, he said into his communication device, you need to see this. The message was from General Krex himself, the same Korvaxian who had mocked humans at the council. His proud voice now shook with fear. Unknown force has destroyed 3 of our core worlds. Our fleets cannot stop them. Traditional weapons are useless. Request any assistance available. Admiral Sujin's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but alert. They're asking us for help? Looks like it, Jinwoo replied, though they're too proud to say it directly. On the bridge next to Jinwoo, Engineer Haeon looked up from her workstation. I've been monitoring the emergency broadcasts. Whatever hit the Korvaxians doesn't fight like anything we've seen before. Dr. Yuna, the ship's scientist, had been studying the data all morning. The attackers seem to consume everything. Ships, stations, even whole planets. They're calling them devourers. Admiral Sujin made her decision quickly. Take a small task force and go help them. But be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. 3 days later, Captain Jinwoo's ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Korvaxian space. What they found made the human crews gasp in shock. Where the proud Korvaxian fleet once patrolled, now only scattered groups of damaged ships limped through space. The enemy was unlike anything in the galaxy's history books. The Devourers looked like living ships, but they moved and fought like animals. They were huge, dark things that seemed to eat light itself. Captain, called out Navigator Minho from his station, General Krex's ship is signaling us. The Korvaxian general appeared on screen. His armor was cracked and his face showed exhaustion. Humans. I did not expect anyone to answer our call. We help those who need help, Jinwoo said simply. Tell us about these Devourers. They appeared from outside our galaxy. Our weapons damage them, but they heal quickly. Worse, they seem to learn from each attack. Every strategy we try works once, then never again. Engineer Haeon studied the data streaming from the Korvaxian sensors. Captain, their ships are biological. Living things, not machines. That changes everything, Dr. Yuna said excitedly. If they're alive, they might have weaknesses that machines don't have. Captain Jinwoo made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. General Krex, we're going to try something different. Instead of big fleet battles, we want to study these creatures up close. That's suicide, Krex protested. They'll destroy your small ships instantly. Maybe, Jinwoo agreed. But maybe not. The human plan was simple and terrifying. Instead of meeting the Devourers in open space, they would hide in asteroid fields and gas clouds. Instead of attacking with massive weapons, they would use small, precise strikes. Instead of trying to destroy the creatures, they would try to understand them. The first test came when a group of Devourers entered the asteroid belt around a dead planet. Captain Jinwoo's ship hid behind a large rock waiting. When the creatures passed by, Engineer Heian launched tiny probes that attached to their hulls. "They're not detecting the probes," she whispered excitedly. "The biological sensors can't tell the difference between our machines and the asteroids." For 3 days, the humans played hide-and-seek with the Devourers. They learned incredible things. Dr. Yuna discovered that the creatures weren't just hungry, they were in pain. "Look at these readings," she told the crew. "Their biology is wrong somehow. Like they're sick." Engineer Heian made an even more amazing discovery. "Captain, I've been listening to their communications. I think they're not just mindless beasts. There's a pattern in their signals, almost like they're trying to talk to each other." The breakthrough came when Navigator Minho noticed something strange. The small Devourers always follow the large ones, and the large ones seem to be protecting them, not just commanding them. "Families," Dr. Yuna breathed. "They're traveling in family groups." Captain Jinwoo felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. What if they're not invaders? What if they're refugees? The idea seemed crazy, but the more they studied the Devourers, the more sense it made. The creatures weren't attacking randomly. They were consuming dead worlds and empty space, trying to avoid places where people lived. Only when cornered did they fight back with the fury that had terrified the Korvaxians. "We need to try talking to them," Dr. Yuna declared. General Krex nearly exploded when he heard this plan. "Talk to them? They're monsters! They destroyed entire worlds." "Scared monsters," Captain Jinwoo corrected. "There's a difference." The first attempt at communication almost ended in disaster. Dr. Yuna's carefully crafted message seemed to enrage a group of young Devourers. They turned toward the human ships with obvious hostile intent. Then something unexpected happened. A larger Devourer, clearly very old, moved between the angry youngsters and the human ships. It seemed to be calming them down the way a parent might calm frightened children. "It's protecting us," Engineer Heian said in amazement. The old Devourer began sending signals toward the human ships, not the chaotic screaming they had heard in battle, but slow, careful patterns that repeated and changed. Dr. Yuna worked frantically to decode the message. Hours passed. Then she looked up with tears in her eyes. "What does it say?" Captain Jinwoo asked. "It's asking for help," she whispered. "It's asking us not to hurt its children. It's saying they're sorry for the damage they've caused. But they're dying and don't know how to stop." The message that Captain Jinwoo sent back to Admiral Sujin and the Galactic Council changed everything. The Devourers weren't an invasion force. They were refugees from a dying universe, driven mad by hunger and pain, desperately seeking a new home. General Krex read the report 3 times before he believed it. "You're saying these monsters that destroyed our worlds are just lost? Lost and afraid and probably dying," Dr. Yuna confirmed. "They've been wandering between galaxies for so long they've forgotten what peace feels like." The news reached Elder Vorthak on Nexus Prime, just as he was reading the ancient prophecy again. The words seemed to glow brighter as he read them. They will reshape the very fabric of existence. Who else but humans, he thought, would try to talk to monsters instead of fighting them? Admiral Sujin's next message to the Council was simple. "We request permission to begin formal communication protocols with the beings known as Devourers. We believe a peaceful solution is possible." The galaxy had been at war with the Devourers for months. In 6 days, the humans had turned enemies into refugees who just needed help. The ancient warning was starting to come true. The emergency meeting on Nexus Prime had been going on for 6 hours. The great hall buzzed with angry voices in dozens of languages. The Devourers were still coming, still consuming worlds. Now the humans claimed they could talk to these monsters. General Krex slammed his massive fist on his chair. "The humans have lost their minds. You cannot negotiate with destroyers." "They destroyed 3 Korvaxian worlds," Skyweaver Zilthan agreed, her metal wings shining with agitation. "How many more must die while we try to talk?" Elder Vorthak sat quietly, listening to the debate. At the center of the storm stood General Minho, the human military commander. Next to him, scientist Seokjin held a datapad with trembling hands. Diplomat Ji-young waited patiently for her chance to speak. Analyst Yoonji took notes, recording everything. "The evidence is clear," General Minho said calmly. "The Devourers are not attacking randomly. They avoid populated systems when possible. They only fight when cornered." "Because they're planning something worse," General Krex shot back. "They're studying our defenses." Scientist Seokjin stepped forward. "May I show you what we've learned?" The lights dimmed and a holographic display appeared above them. It showed the path the Devourers had taken through the galaxy. Most beings saw only destruction, but Seokjin pointed out the pattern. "Look carefully," he said. "They're not moving toward our most important worlds. They're moving away from them, and they only consume dead planets or empty space unless we force them into battle." Diplomat Jiyoung added quietly, "We've been translating their communications for weeks now. They call themselves the Wandering. They speak of a great hunger that drives them mad. They don't want to hurt anyone." "Lies," hissed Counselor Next. "Monsters always lie." Analyst Yoonji looked up from her notes. "What if they're not monsters at all? What if they're victims?" The hall erupted in shouts and arguments. The idea was too strange, too impossible for most beings to accept. These creatures had destroyed entire worlds. How could they be victims? Elder Vorthak finally spoke, his ancient voice cutting through the noise. "What exactly are you proposing, humans?" General Minho took a deep breath. "We want to try formal first contact protocols. We want to invite a Devourer representative to come here, to Nexus Prime under a flag of peace." The silence that followed was deafening. Then the hall exploded. "Bring one of those things here?" General Krex roared. "To our most sacred place?" "It would be madness," Skyweaver Zilthan declared. "They could destroy this entire station." "They could," Diplomat Jiyoung agreed. "But they won't, because they're not what we think they are." Elder Vorthak studied the young human woman. "You sound very certain." "I am certain," she replied, "because I've already talked to one." The revelation hit the assembly like a shockwave. Jiyoung had made unauthorized contact with the enemy. In any other circumstance, she would be arrested. But these were not normal times. "Tell us," Vorthak commanded. Jiyoung activated her own holographic display. A massive shape appeared above them, dark and writhing. But as the image cleared, they could see it wasn't just a monster. It was a being, ancient beyond measure, carrying thousands of smaller forms within its protective embrace. "This is the First Mother," Jiyoung explained. "She's over 50,000 years old. She remembers when her people were not devourers at all." The image changed, showing the creature as it once was. Beautiful, crystalline beings that lived in harmony with space itself. They had been gardeners of the universe, tending to dying stars and nurturing new worlds into life. "What happened to them?" Elder Vorthak asked, though he feared the answer. Scientist Seokjin provided the details. Their home universe began dying faster than they could heal it. They tried to save everything, but the effort changed them. The constant hunger for energy to feed dying worlds transformed their bodies. They became what they feared most, consumers instead of creators. "They've been wandering for millions of years," Jiyoung continued, "searching for a way to reverse what happened to them. The Great Hunger isn't evil. It's a sickness. And they're dying from it." Analyst Yoonji displayed her research. Every devourer ship carries thousands of young ones. They're trying to keep their species alive while searching for a cure, but the hunger drives them mad. They can't control it anymore. The implications hit everyone at once. The galaxy had been fighting refugees, war orphans, a dying people who had once been healers now trapped in bodies that could only destroy. "Impossible," General Krex muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. "Impossible for us, maybe," General Minho said, "but humans specialize in impossible things." Elder Vorthak felt ancient prophecies stirring in his mind. Beings who would reshape existence, who would see solutions where others saw only problems. "What do you need from us?" "Time," Diplomat Jiyoung answered. "Space and trust. Let us bring the First Mother here. Let her speak to the Council directly, and if you're wrong," Skyweaver Zilthan demanded, "if this is all an elaborate trick, then we'll face the consequences," General Minho replied simply. "But we're not wrong." The vote was closer than anyone expected. Fear battled with curiosity. Tradition struggled against the possibility of hope. In the end, Elder Vorthak's ancient authority tipped the balance. "The humans will have their chance," he announced. "One representative. Full diplomatic protection. But any sign of deception, any hint of danger, and we end this immediately." 3 days later, something unprecedented happened in the galaxy. A Devourer ship approached Nexus Prime under a flag of peace. The massive creature moved slowly, carefully, broadcasting peaceful intentions in a dozen languages. The First Mother was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Her crystalline body had been warped by eons of hunger, but traces of her original glory still shone through. She spoke in a voice like dying stars, full of sadness and hope. "We remember when we were gardeners," she told the assembled council. "We remember healing worlds and nurturing life. We remember the day we chose to sacrifice ourselves to save our universe. We remember the moment we realized our sacrifice had failed." Her pain filled the great hall. Beings who had been ready for war found themselves moved to tears. "We have wandered so long searching for redemption, for a way to undo what we became. Your young species offers us something we thought lost forever, the possibility of becoming healers again." Scientist Seokjin presented his preliminary research. "With their biotechnology and our adaptability, we might be able to reverse the hunger, restore them to what they once were." "Impossible," whispered General Krex, but now he sounded hopeful instead of dismissive. Elder Vorthak looked at the humans who had made this moment possible, young beings from a small world who refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. The ancient prophecy echoed in his mind. They will reshape the very fabric of existence. But the prophecy had also warned of something else, something about choices and consequences, about those who would not believe until it was too late. As he watched the First Mother speak of hope and redemption, Vorthak wondered what other impossible things the humans might attempt, and whether the galaxy would be wise enough to follow them when they did. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans had done the impossible. They had made peace with the Devourers. But what came next shocked even those who had started to believe in human miracles. Admiral Wanho stood in the command center of the human space station Haven, watching impossible things happen through the massive viewing windows. Outside, human ships worked alongside Devourer biovessels, their crews learning from each other. The sight made his heart race with excitement and terror. "The first batch of conversions is ready," reported Ambassador Chaeyoung, her voice filled with wonder. 5 Devourer scouts have been successfully transformed back to their original state. The process was incredible to watch. Human technology merged with Devourer biosystems, guided by the ancient memories the First Mother carried. Slowly, painfully, the twisted forms of the hungry creatures straightened into the beautiful crystalline beings they had once been. Professor Kyungmin hurried into the command center, carrying an ancient data tablet. "Admiral, I've found more of the prophecy. The complete text from the Selenian archives." "What does it say?" Admiral Wanho asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Kyungmin read carefully. "Beware the young species that conquers not through strength alone, but through adaptation, unity, and refusal to yield. They will reshape the very fabric of existence. They will turn enemies into allies, hunters into healers. The galaxy will face a choice: embrace the impossible or destroy those who make it possible. And those who choose destruction will learn too late that some forces cannot be stopped." The warning in those words chilled everyone in the room. Captain Suyong, just returned from a deep space patrol, delivered news that made the prophecy terrifyingly relevant. "Admiral, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Selenian, Corvaxian, Zephyrian. All the major powers are mobilizing their war fleets." "Where are they heading?" Wanho asked, though he already knew the answer. "Here," Suyong replied grimly. "They're coming for us." The reason for their anger was clear. Humanity hadn't just made peace with the Devourers. They had formed an alliance that gave them access to biotechnology beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships now grew instead of being built. Human soldiers wore living armor that could heal wounds instantly. Human colonies could terraform dead worlds in months instead of centuries. But more terrifying to the established powers was the fact that humans were sharing this technology freely with any species that asked for it. The rigid hierarchy that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was crumbling. Elder Vorthak arrived at Haven 3 days before the Allied fleets were due to attack. His old shuttle looked tiny next to the massive Devourer ships that now protected human space. He came alone against all protocol, carrying only a message. "They mean to destroy you," he told Admiral Wanho directly. "All of you. Humans and Devourers both. They're calling it the Cleansing War." Ambassador Chaeyoung received the news with calm that surprised everyone. "We expected this. People fear what they don't understand." "You don't understand," Vorthak said urgently. "This isn't just fear. This is survival instinct. You've upset the balance of power that has kept peace for 10,000 years." Professor Kyungmin looked up from his research. "Respectfully, Elder Vorthak, there was no peace. There was only control. The strong ruling the weak, keeping everyone in their assigned places. Some control is necessary, Vorthak protested. Without hierarchy, there is chaos. Captain Suyung joined the conversation. We're not trying to create chaos. We're trying to create possibility. Outside the station windows, they could see the proof of her words. A dead world that had been barren for millions of years now bloomed with new life. Devourer biotechnology, guided by human creativity, had transformed it into a garden more beautiful than anything in the known galaxy. How? Vorthak asked, staring at the miracle world. We asked the right question, Admiral Wanho explained. Instead of asking, how can we control this? We asked, how can we heal this? Instead of how can we profit? We asked, how can we help? The First Mother's voice echoed through the station's communication system. Her massive form had grown more beautiful each day, as the transformation process restored her original nature. Elder Vorthak, your people once helped mine when we were young. We remember kindness. We remember hope. These humans have given us both. But the fleets, Vorthak said desperately. Thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers. They're coming to end this alliance. Ambassador Chaeyong smiled with surprising gentleness. Let them come. We have something to show them. Over the next 3 days, the humans and their devourer allies prepared for war in the strangest way possible. Instead of building weapons, they created gardens. Instead of setting up defenses, they prepared welcome ceremonies. Instead of planning battles, they organized tours. Have you all lost your minds? Elder Vorthak demanded. A war fleet is coming to destroy you and you're planning a party? Professor Kyungmin showed him the historical data he had been studying. Elder Vorthak, in our species' history, every major advance in civilization came when someone refused to accept that conflict was inevitable. When someone chose to offer friendship instead of fighting. Sometimes that gets you killed, Vorthak pointed out. Sometimes, Captain Suyung agreed, but sometimes it changes everything. The Allied fleet arrived right on schedule. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all united in their determination to stop the human devourer alliance. General Krex commanded the Korvaxian forces. Skyweaver Zilthon led the Zephyrian armadas. Even the peaceful hegemony had sent warships. They expected to find humans cowering behind devourer shields. They expected desperate defenses and last-minute pleas for mercy. Instead, they found something that made no sense at all. Admiral Wanho's message reached every ship in the attacking fleet simultaneously. Welcome to Haven. We've been hoping you would come. We have so much to show you. The fleet commanders were baffled. Where were the weapons? Where were the defenses? The human space station sat defenseless in open space, surrounded by devourer ships that made no threatening moves. It's a trap, General Krex declared. They're trying to lure us into some kind of ambush. But long-range scans showed no hidden fleets, no secret weapons. Just humans and transformed devourers working together on impossible projects. Admiral Krex, came Admiral Wanho's voice again, calm and friendly. We know you've come to destroy us. We understand why you're afraid. But before you attack, would you like to see what we've built together? What followed was the strangest military action in galactic history. Instead of opening fire, the human station began broadcasting live video feeds. They showed the miracle world where devourers had learned to grow gardens instead of consuming life. They showed human children playing with young devourers, both species learning from each other. They showed technology that could heal any wound, end any disease, transform any dead world into paradise. This is what we offer, Ambassador Chaeyong's voice carried to every ship. Not conquest, not control, just the chance to build something better together. Some fleet commanders were moved, others remained determined to attack. But all of them began to wonder if destroying this alliance might be the worst mistake in galactic history. Elder Vorthak, watching from Haven's command center, finally understood what the ancient prophecy really meant. The humans weren't unstoppable because they were strong. They were unstoppable because they refused to believe that anything was impossible, even turning a war into a revelation. The question now was whether the galaxy would choose to learn from them or destroy them. And time was running out to decide. The moment that changed galactic history forever happened quietly. Admiral Heejin watched from the bridge of the human flagship Harmony as the first enemy ship broke formation. It was a small Zephyrian scout vessel, moving slowly toward the human station. Sir, called out Communications Officer Taehyung, the scout ship is requesting permission to dock. They want to see the gardens in person. President Namjoon, who had arrived just hours before the fleet, smiled with quiet satisfaction. Permission granted. Send them our warmest welcome. Around them, the massive war fleet hung motionless in space. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, all waiting for orders that never came. Instead of weapons firing, they watched something unprecedented unfold. The Zephyrian scout ship docked at Haven Station. Within an hour, its crew was walking through impossible gardens where humans and transformed devourers worked side by side. They saw dead soil become fertile earth in minutes. They watched crystalline beings who had once been monsters of hunger, now teaching human children how to sing to growing plants. Captain Soo-young escorted the Zephyrian visitors personally. This world was completely dead when we found it, she explained, gesturing to the vast gardens visible through the transparent walls. No atmosphere, no water, no life at all. The Devourer's biotechnology restored it in 3 weeks. Wing Commander Thessian, leader of the Zephyrian Scouts, touched a flower that glowed with soft inner light. How? We asked them to remember what they used to be, President Namjoon replied, joining the group. Before the hunger. Before the pain. They were gardeners once, tenders of dying worlds. We just helped them remember. The first consciousness, the ancient being who had once been called the First Mother, approached the group. Her transformation was nearly complete now. Where once had been a twisted creature of hunger, now stood a being of incredible beauty. Her crystalline form rang like music when she moved. We had forgotten our true nature, she said, her voice like singing crystal. These humans helped us find ourselves again. In return, we share what we have learned in our long wandering. Wing Commander Thessian stared in wonder. The report said you were destroyers, consumers of worlds. We were, the first consciousness admitted sadly. Hunger made us into monsters. But hunger was never our choice. It was the price we paid trying to save our dying universe. Professor Kyungmin appeared with a holographic display, showing the complete historical record. They sacrificed everything to try to heal a universe in collapse. The effort transformed them into the very thing they fought against. They've been searching for redemption ever since, and now? Thessian asked. Admiral Heejin answered. Now they remember how to heal instead of harm. And we're learning from each other. The news from the scout ship spread through the fleet like ripples in a pond. Other ships began requesting permission to visit. General Krex held out the longest, but even his iron discipline cracked when his own officers started asking questions. Sir, his aide reported, the hegemony ships are requesting permission to send delegations. The Selenian fleet is standing down. Even some of our own captains are asking for clarification of orders. General Krex stared at the impossible sight outside his command ship's windows. Human vessels and devourer bioships working together, neither dominating the other. It went against everything he understood about power and survival. This changes nothing, he declared. They're still dangerous. This alliance threatens the natural order. But his words rang hollow even to himself. What natural order could be threatened by turning monsters into gardeners? What danger could there be in healing dead worlds? Elder Vorthak's shuttle approached Krex's flagship, requesting permission to board. The ancient Selenian had spent days on Haven Station, watching the impossible become routine. General, Vorthak said when they met in Krex's private chamber, I've seen things that challenge everything we believed. These humans haven't conquered the Devourers. They've liberated them. From what? Krex demanded, from despair, from the belief that they could never be anything but destroyers. Vorthak activated a recording device. Listen to this. The voice that emerged was the first consciousness, but from recordings made months ago when she was still consumed by hunger. The sound was horrible, endless screaming, begging, pleading for death as an escape from the hunger that drove her mad. Then Vorthak played a recent recording. The same voice but transformed. Still sad, but now filled with hope. Speaking of gardens to tend, worlds to heal, children to teach. They were in hell, Vorthak said quietly, and the humans found a way to get them out. The moment that tipped the balance came when Admiral Heejin made an announcement to the entire fleet. We're about to begin the restoration of the Korvaxian worlds that were consumed. Any ships that wish to observe are welcome to join us. General Krex found himself ordering his flagship forward before he could stop himself. He had to see this. The 3 dead worlds hung in space like wounds in the universe. The Devourers had consumed everything. Atmosphere, oceans, even the solid matter of the planets themselves. Nothing remained but hollow shells of rock. But as the combined human-devourer task force approached, incredible things began to happen. The crystalline beings, now restored to their original forms, began to sing, their voices carried across space itself, calling to the dead worlds. President Namjoon stood beside General Krex on the observation deck, watching the miracle unfold. They remember every world they've ever consumed, he explained. Every life, every ecosystem, every detail, and now they can give it all back. The dead planets began to glow. Deep within their cores, new life stirred. The Devourer's biotechnology, guided by human innovation and driven by ancient memories, began to restore what had been lost. Oceans returned first, vast and blue and teeming with life. Then came the continents, rich with soil that had never known death. Forests grew in minutes. Cities rebuilt themselves from remembered patterns. Even the people who had died came back, not as ghosts but as living beings restored from the genetic memories the Devourers carried. Impossible, General Krex whispered, but his voice held wonder instead of denial. That's what they told us, President Namjoon replied with a smile. The transformation of the three worlds took only hours. When it was done, they were more beautiful than they had ever been before. The restored Korvaxians who walked on the new continents wept with joy and amazement. General Krex's aide approached cautiously. Sir, the fleet commanders are requesting new orders. The original mission seems no longer relevant. Krex looked around at the miracle surrounding them. Ships from dozens of species floated side by side, their crews working together to document and understand what they had witnessed. The rigid battle formations had dissolved into something that looked more like a festival than a war fleet. Stand down all weapons, he ordered quietly. Send a message to all ships. Mission parameters have changed. We are no longer here to destroy. We are here to learn. The final moment came when the first consciousness approached the fleet in person, her restored form magnificent beyond description. She spoke to the assembled commanders with a voice like singing stars. For eons we wandered in darkness, believing we were cursed to destroy. These humans showed us a different truth. We were not cursed, we were lost. And being lost is not permanent. Elder Vorthak felt tears streaming down his ancient face as the prophecy's final meaning became clear. The humans were unstoppable not because they conquered, but because they refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable, any enemy irredeemable, any situation hopeless. They reshape existence, he whispered to himself, by refusing to believe it cannot be reshaped. In the days that followed, the war fleet became an exploration fleet. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together, guided by human example and devourer wisdom. The rigid hierarchies that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years crumbled, replaced by something unprecedented, voluntary cooperation based on shared wonder. President Namjoon stood in Haven's command center, watching ships from across the galaxy working together to heal old wounds and explore new possibilities. Admiral Heejin joined him at the observation window. The prophecy was right, she said. We were unstoppable. But not in the way anyone expected. Namjoon nodded. We didn't conquer the galaxy. We just showed it that conquest wasn't necessary. Outside, human children played with young devourers while their parents worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible just months ago. Former enemies had become family. Former monsters had become teachers. The galaxy had been warned about humanity. The elders had spoken of beings who would reshape existence itself. They had been right about everything except one crucial detail. The reshaping wouldn't come through force. It would come through hope, and hope once kindled was truly unstoppable. 5 years later, Elder Vorthak would often visit the monument built where Haven Station once stood. The inscription, written in the languages of 100 species, carried a simple message. Here began the age when nothing was impossible, because someone refused to believe it was. The humans had been warned about. The galaxy had feared them. And in the end, both the warnings and the fears had been completely, wonderfully wrong.